Did you know the first disc, Photoshop 1.0, has me dressed as a cowboy giving the first demos of Photoshop?
I did not know that.
Today I'm going to interview one of the best in the world. I'm going to introduce you to myself. I'm going to talk about myself today with the help of KelbyOne and Erik Kuna.
Well, hey, Russell, how's it going?
It is fantastic to be with you, Erik. This is going to be really fun. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. I look forward to having you at Photoshop World to talk about this because there's so much I was able to find out about your past, and I can see how your past has come out in your work. Maybe you don't even know that.
No, you didn't go too far back into my past. There's some stuff I don't want people to know about. And
Okay, we won't go that far back, but I kind of want to take that journey with you here tonight. I actually kind of structured this as different acts. I saw different acts in your life, kind of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And the first place that I'd love to go with you is back in that origin story. Back in the day, when you were starting out, what was that moment for you with photography when it stopped being like a class or just something that you were doing and really became an obsession for you? Where did you find that?
So, boy, let's go way back. Mm-hmm. It's 1973. How about that Wayback Machine?
Yes,
and you're seeing the work from Jerry Ullsman. I'm in the darkroom in high school learning about photography, and you see the work of Jerry Ullsman. It looks like it's Photoshop, but in 1973. Just like now, I look at a great photographer and I try and recreate some of their work, and that's a great way to start. But I looked at Jerry Ullsman combining images together in a darkroom with 6 multiple enlargers, and the processing and the masking and the layering he was doing. If you're looking for the spark, that probably had to be it.
I remember seeing an interview with you years ago on your Russell Brown podcast where you got to actually talk to Jerry. And Jerry was, fast forward to the 90s. The 90s for me, I was still inspired. I was inspired by Jerry Ullsman's work. And I can see that, though, how that makes total sense for your work.
Yeah.
That was kind of the start of it. Because, one of the things that Jerry would talk about is this idea of everybody, the Ansel Adams, they would talk about pre-visualization. And he came up with that term, post-visualization.
Yeah.
And how did that approach influence your own experimentation in those early days? And then even how did that teach you in Photoshop to do stuff that you really weren't thinking about, that post-visualization idea that Jerry brought to us?
So I think it was the surreal quality of Jerry's work. I was admiring Magritte as a painter and Jerry as a photographer, and there was that hidden message inside the images, this sort of double take you would take with a Magritte painting or with a Jerry Ullsman. So I think those two, you're sort of defining something now that I think about it. Hey, yeah, the two of them together as artists were a key influence in the beginning of time. Even this morning, I'm sitting here, I was in Photoshop on my iPad, and I'm creating one of those moments in Yosemite. I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's Jerry loved Yosemite. And here I'm making a surreal moment on the edge of a cliff in Yosemite. So wow, yeah, it is
weird. It's weird again, these intersections that I found, because I started college at the University of Florida right as Jerry was retiring. Yeah. I didn't get to take any classes with him, but I would have loved to, because he was a big inspiration for me as well, because I think both of our works, I love to push into the surreal.
Yes.
Now, I coin my own as photorealistic surrealism. So I like to be photorealistic, but an element of surrealism. But I definitely see in your work 100% how he planted that seed early. And then Photoshop, which we'll get to later, I think Photoshop made it explode for you.
Yeah.
Right? It just exploded and your mind went crazy. Is there one thing that you felt like back in the day when you were working in the darkroom,
Yeah.
working like Jerry was working, that every Photoshop user should kind of understand today, like darkroom techniques that again apply today that we just forget about?
I think the key back then was dodging and burning, I would have to say. You know how you focus the energy, you want the person's eye to go to, say, the center of the image or something within the image. And I was always doing the dodging and burning to darken up the edge to say, look here. So I think that's something that we can learn from that very fact even today. There should always be a focus within your image. And I think that's the thing I learned back in the darkroom, is make sure that there's something of focus, something of interest within the image. Do you like that?
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's a good nugget for us to remember, is how important shaping light and shaping the story in the visual perspective. But that kind of takes us to our next act in your life.
Oh, is this act 2?
Because you kind of, move into your formal education, right? And it was very interesting that you started by studying ceramics, right?
I got to tell you this story. So I'm studying ceramics. I'm going to be a ceramics major at the University of Washington, okay? And that's when Dad comes over and says, why don't you get a real job and use ceramics as your hobby? He called me Rusty at that time. So Rusty. And at that time, my father told me I should be a telephone repairman because I was good with my hands and electronics at the time. Father tells you, you better find something else. So you find graphic design at the University of Washington, and that's where I went next on this, the direction you're taking me. So graphic design saved me, and I did make ceramics a hobby.
Those both are kind of like one and the same, right? Because ceramics, being able to mold something and shape something, it was the same thing, but you kind of transferred it into, again, the design of stuff, and the design of, and photography is the same way. How do you think that mix of having graphic design, ceramics, photography, that helped you solve like the visual problems we have?
I think everybody should take a course in graphic design, typography. I think it teaches you about composition, elements, combining things together. With that skills that I learned back at Art Center College's design and even at the University of Washington, I think it's something that people are missing. I think you have to have, I did watercolor painting, I did oil painting, I did graphic design, I did photography, I did ceramics. There's advice to people getting started. Open up every door that you can possibly go into and adventure, look at different forms of art when you are 18, 19, 20 years old. Try everything. I even did macrame. Macrame. Okay, that was very 60s of me. You are making this revelation to me. There was nothing that I didn't experiment with when it came to art in those early days. Do everything you can when you're 18. There it is. Okay, is that my message? That's my message.
Even if you're 80, being able to expose yourself to different techniques and not keeping your mind closed to new ideas and new forms of expression, that will help your photography or help your design because it opens you up to new experiences, right?
Wow.
And new ways of seeing. But speaking of new experiences,
this is a good show, by the way. This is a good show. We're coming.
You leave college, right? And so you were talking about your dad, and how your dad was encouraging you to get a real job. How did he feel when you got a job at Atari, making packages for things like Pac-Man? And that, because I mean, it must have been like I think it's probably like a fringe thing. I know my father would have been like, well, yeah, you're working for like a new industry that like nobody really knows about, but it's kind of going to boom up. Like, how did that happen?
I'm at Atari. My father liked this because I was making a living.
Yeah, exactly. But you're making a living at doing something that you love to do, design and typography, storytelling.
Oh, you're hitting on, I have to make my quote of the day. Fall in love with what you love to do, and someone will pay you to do it. Wow.
That's worth the admission right there. Just that quote.
So Ray Bradbury said that exact quote as I had graduated from Art Center, and I hold that with me today, and it is so true. Become the expert at one thing that you love to do, and the world will come and find you. It's absolutely the formula to success.
It's true.
Back to Atari, I'm doing video games. I'm putting together in-store displays for video games, like Centipede coming down out of the sky, and I'm selling video games to 14-year-olds in 1980. Wow, that goes way back.
I mean, I didn't even realize, like, I'm growing up a little kid playing these Atari systems, and I'm like, yeah, Russell Brown designed like the packaging and stuff. Like, and I could see these pictures. I'm like, I used to pop that cartridge into my machine and turn it on, and I was, but I was thinking like, it just looked cool, and now to realize that, like, that's how your journey went, because then you step from there. We all know there's a rise and fall to Atari, but you go right from there.
Yes.
In 1984.
Yes.
And you go over to another company called Apple.
So Atari crashes. The building is empty. They've kicked everybody out. Everybody's fired. The building's still open because I know the guard, and there's a Krememco computer inside. It has 16 colors you can draw with. 16. And you can dither them. And so I'm playing in there, and my soon-to-become wife says, you have to stop playing around. Why don't you come over and do some work over here at Apple and discover what's going on over here at Apple. So you listen to your soon-to-become wife, Jan Davis. She has to hire me over at Apple as a freelancer. And I'll jump in right and say that is when everything went crazy, because I saw the laser writer and a Macintosh for the first time, and I saw the future. I could put text and graphics onto a page. It looked terrible on the Macintosh, but you could draw a circle and it was smooth. Okay, there's one of those points in time when you discover PostScript and the laser writer, and it's 1984, and you're freelancing at Apple. The butterfly effect. If I hadn't have been in this room or this room at the right time, and my other advice, it's who you meet along the way that is so important. It's these connections you make. I made one little connection at Apple. This art director comes to me and he says, you're sort of crazy. You sort of like this technology stuff, Russ. You might like this startup company called Adobe, and you should go over and apply for they're looking for an art director, their first art director at Adobe. I said, no. This is really fun here at Apple. I can use a laser writer. He just shakes me. He says, no, trust me. You need to go and take this job, leave Apple, go over to Adobe, become their 38th employee. And I just have to sit back and think, wow, that turning point. What if I hadn't turned left instead of right?
Oh no, because you just took us to Act 3.
I'm at Act 3.
I want you to take us into the room, one room, and that was
the room.
You're in a room, and these two guys, John and Thomas Knoll, are showing you a demo. What did you see that others missed in that demo? Like, what did you see that others missed?
So John Knoll was in the room with me. Thomas was back in Ann Arbor. He was the programmer.
Okay.
John Knoll was the salesman. He was selling the product.
Yep.
And gosh, we just have to think about it for a moment. I know that Thomas Knoll wrote Photoshop, but John Knoll brought it to the market and went out and did the demos to sell it. And so we would not be here if it wasn't for John Knoll and Star Wars, by the way, because John Knoll was inspired by Star
We all know
Wars.
that.
And Star Wars inspired John. John made Photoshop. John sat down with me in that room. John's there in the room, as you said. What did I see? I saw their very first soft edge selection. Let's get that echo on that. Soft edge selection. And I saw a soft edge brush. Good grief. You'd never. We had, remember, I was working with Mac Paint, where it was just little cubes. You build things with cubes. And now these were soft, and it was blended, and there was a mask. So there's John Knoll showing me this, and I knew that this was the final thing we needed at Adobe, because John Warnock always said you need fonts, graphics, and halftones. But halftones meant photography in those days, because it was all
So along those lines, Russell, what did you say to John Warnock after that demo? Like, what did you say to get him
I think on Wikipedia it says Russell Brown ran to John Warnock's office. I just told him that this was finishing the puzzle.
So it was the missing puzzle piece to Adobe, right?
Yeah, and I wanted this so badly. I had 16 pixels there at Atari, and I wanted so many more pixels, and I saw this coming, and we could touch this, we could control this, we could move the mouse and move things around and adjust an image. Oh yeah, this was a revelation to me. This was the whole new world, and I knew then, why I was at Adobe. It's because the toys, all the toys I had available to me as a graphic designer, the fonts, the Illustrator fonts, now Photoshop. Wow, I was in the Wonderland, wasn't I?
Taking off a little bit of that, Adobe hat and just looking at it more like, we know that was in the late 80s. We're now in the 2020s. We've got all this time between there. What do you think Photoshop hadn't happened?
I wanted to see this. It's a Wonderful Life with the Knoll brothers, where the Knoll brothers, they were never born. And how soon would we have invented something? Would Apple have invented something? Boy, there's a lot of things that had to happen at the same time. I don't think we'd be sitting here today. I think it would be a different world completely. Would there be an easy-to-use Photoshop? I'm going to say something crazy. I'm going to say, because I can only get in trouble saying this. I think Photoshop was critical to the success, here it comes, of the Macintosh. Oops. He said,
wow.
I do. I believe everything was happening. You had the Macintosh, you had the laser writer, you had Illustrator. I believe that Photoshop was that ingredient that added to it, that made graphic designers become interested in it as a tool, and they started buying the Macintosh. Sure, the Macintosh is an amazing tool, but I think the software is a key component as well. I don't think people at Apple are going to hit me right now. I think it was a team effort that everything came together at the right time, at the right place. They all had to be there. Adobe wasn't going to make desktop publishing happen. Apple needed Adobe. Adobe needed Apple. Wow. Did I just say that?
Well, it's just interesting, like you're talking about, like everything converged at the same time. You could even say, would digital photography even become what it became if it wasn't the catalyst of Photoshop before that, and then democratizing design to everybody?
Absolutely.
And then everything starts exploding. And then that's when I started picking up on how I remember as Dr. Brown. Almost mad scientist of Photoshop starts coming out. And I wrote out, I really appreciate the teaching style that you had in those early days. You were about the theatrics. You were about the costumes. You were about the memorable demos. I remember demos growing up.
You to tell me what you thought when I came walking into Photoshop World wearing a giant wig sticking up in the air and this
it was just
lab coat.
You made education fun, right? And that's what I loved about it. What I wanted to ask you is why? So why did those performances, like why did you find in those engineering demos that could be so dry, why did you find that performance mattered with this technical education? Because it really rang true for me. So I'm just curious, like, why?
It has to go back to the days of ceramics. I was making costumes. I was sewing costumes with a sewing machine. You didn't know that side. I mean, everybody should learn how to sew with a sewing machine, by the way. Making costumes, entering costume contests. I secretly wanted to be an actor on stage and never went that path. I was never good at memorizing lines. So I was taking that desire to be an actor and integrating it with performance art to sell Photoshop. Yeah. Did you know the first disc, Photoshop 1.0, has me dressed as a cowboy giving the first demos of Photoshop?
I did not know that.
You can probably look this up and find them.
That's amazing.
And no. So yeah, the theater.
That makes total sense. I mean, that's why, again, I was saying it was interesting to know the background in ceramics and art. That was probably why this became important to you. So you're Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
That's what I remember you as. Growing up, it was Dr. Brown, right? And you had things like Image Processor Pro, Stack-O-Matic, Place-O-Matic. In fact, you had a star stacking thing that I still hand out to people, to make star stacking. Yeah, that's the star trails, right?
Yeah.
So is there a script or panel when you were doing that stuff that you wish more photographers would have used?
It's not super sexy, but the one that I wish were still here in its full glory was the Image Processor Pro. It's a crazy one. You had 25,000 images, and you had to get those from Photoshop into a smaller JPEG. And you didn't want to sit there and do them one by one, so I came up with this script that would process images and turn it from A into B. And it did it smoothly. You could go to lunch. You could get it all done. That's one that I wish were still here. And the other one was the ability to take textures and automatically apply them to images as a blend mode. So you could, because I don't know, I'm always putting a texture over an image and giving it a blend mode of overlay. And so you just clicked a button and it would apply it and put in a new layer and apply the overlay. That one's missing too. That one's a simple thing that I think people don't appreciate as much.
Was there any features that you could point back to in Photoshop? Again, I know you had a lot of influence on features that were directly shipped because you just watched users struggle with it.
Yeah.
You were like,
man, you and I
users
both
are struggling with this. Like, what was a feature?
You know the answer to this question already. It's Photoshop 3. It's layers. Yeah. This is something I don't know how I cheated every way possible to make things pretend they were layers, and I didn't think I'd seen layers in high-end, sophisticated systems, and there it is. Layers comes along, and wow, I thought I was dreaming when I could see that and put something on a layer. Oh my gosh. And move the layer around, and it was a soft edge layer.
Changed our lives. It changed our lives. Being able to stack up layers. Like, I mean, again, my photography, that's pretty much, I live by layers, right? Adobe, they create Adobe Max.
Yes.
And the one thing I always appreciate about you at Adobe Max is your pre-cons at Adobe Max are always talked about because they're just legendary, right? You create this environment where people they go through the whole process of creation.
Yes.
We call it post-visualization, all the way through to delivering projects. How did you architect those experiences? They're really wacky and wild. Like, how do you come up with those ideas?
This originated from something called the Art Directors Invitationals. It goes way back. The first one was even with David Hockney at Adobe, an Art Directors Invitational with David Hockney. Now, that's pretty big. That's big stuff. He wanted to know about Photoshop. It just so happens the color laser printer from Canon had just come out. So combining Photoshop printing to a color laser printer. That was intriguing candy to draw David Hockney into an event. So we started doing these invitationals, and then that went on, and I started inviting more people, making it a conference for designers, introducing Illustrator to people like Nigel Holmes, who was the art director at Time magazine. Nigel sees Illustrator for the first time, and he changes everything at the Time magazine, and all the graphics are now being done with a Macintosh because he saw my class. Now we're doing art director events. The art director events get bigger and bigger, more and more people, and then Adobe purchases Macromedia, and they had the conference, and they came to me and said, we need to make this conference for scientists. We need to make this a conference for creatives. We'd like you to create the Russell Brown experience at Adobe Max. And so that's where I started doing them. It started, a very simple class. I think I had, maybe 12 people in the first year. It's gotten bigger and bigger, and I get crazier and crazier. And let me think, do I put on costumes, Erik?
All the time. I think that if you want to trace that back, I think Jerry inspired you to do that stuff too.
Yeah, I would guess so.
Jerry was big into that.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't, at that time, we did a project at Adobe Max where we printed off a laser writer and transferred it onto ceramics, because you could put ceramic toner into the laser printer and then melt it into the ceramic surface. Ding, 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 ding.
There we go. It all comes full circle.
So Photoshop to laser writer to ceramics, that was crazy. So the key to success is how quickly you can get something off of the computer and bring it back into the analog world. I think getting tactile.
Interesting.
I love using lasers to burn wood from Photoshop, exposing a laser printer and putting it back onto a ceramic pot, printing on a Roland printer, and then it extrudes the texture onto a surface, and then you can touch it. I think I did that at one of the Macs, where you could come up and actually touch the artwork. I'm a child of the 60s, and it's something about working with your hands, getting it to be tactile, touching it, experiencing it, getting it off the computer, print it. There was a great fellow I knew, Richard Benson was his name, and he said, I'm going to go into the voice. Russ, nothing really exists unless it's printed on paper. Remember that. And I'm, okay. Because think of all this digital age, everything's just a digital thing. But he's sort of right. Getting it out into the real world, tactile, touch it, see it, hang it on the wall. There's another advice for people.
Oh yeah, because it's timeless too. It carries from generation to generation. It just lives in that digital fake world.
Yeah, get it off your computer and bring it out into the world and share it with others. There's my other big message. So
that's interesting, because now we enter Act 5.
There are 5 acts? I certainly hope
there's
there are
another
at least
one,
more
but there's an Act 5, and I think you're living in Act 5 right now.
Okay, I'm living in Act 5.
So I feel like there was a shift here, right?
Yeah.
You went into this pivot to mobile, right?
Yes.
And I lately, that's what I've enjoyed. You're full on, I feel like, mobile evangelist. I mean, you're doing stuff with like the iPhone, where you're syncing the iPhone to like pro photo lights and taking strobes, and like finishing in Lightroom Mobile and Photoshop on the iPad and doing these amazing things with it. What was the line for you where it went from fun to like a pro tool? Because the way you're using it, I mean, I could argue, people could see the stuff that you've done with strobes and the Pro Photo and the iPhone, or things that you've done with the Photoshop on the iPad and Lightroom Mobile, and they would never know that you didn't use like top-end professional gear. So when did it make that line, cross that line from just fun to pro for you?
You should have asked, why do I use an iPhone? I use it because it's difficult, it's complicated, it's challenging, because you cannot You have to work harder to get better resolution. And I don't like things to be too easy. And so I think I work harder at getting something to look right because the tools I'm using aren't as perfect.
It was a challenge. It was a challenge to you.
Yeah, it was a challenge. I took it on as a challenge. The iPhone, is that 2003? No, it's a 2007. Tell me what.
07, yeah.
2007. So 2007 is a big year. We've got Adobe Lightroom is happening that same time, Photoshop, and that's your turning point to phase, number 5 here is.
Yeah, Act 5.
I've got Act 5. I have the tools to be extremely mobile and extremely creative and have all that darkroom capability. Wow, whoa, I just had another one of those revelations. There it is, the darkroom inside of my phone, which is a camera, and I can travel with it.
Yeah, it's like everything's right there, right?
Everything's right there.
You your capture device, your editing device, your sharing device.
Yeah.
It's just all right there.
This new era, I start playing around with self-portraits. Because if you can't, I don't know a lot of models, and I've got myself, so I start doing self-portraits. I could do some crazy self-portraits, and I'm getting better and better. I'm observing. Here's the tip and technique. Here's the tip for all beginners. Find someone you really love. You love their work so much. And you're not copying them. You're pretending you are a Joel Grimes for the day. You're pretending you're a Greg Gorman or even Jerry Uelsman. You take on that as a task and try and recreate something, not something they did, but create something of your own using their style. And that's when I started playing around with self-portraits. You can see some of them rubbing off on me with my portraits. And then I took my self-portraits, I got tired of myself, and I started doing these creative performers out of Las Vegas. Just amazing people that you can get them to do their act, photograph them, bring in strobes and lights with an iPhone, and then night photography. Like you, taking pictures of your rockets, which are quite amazing. I just got intrigued because the iPhone could now take night photos and these long exposures that were just stunning. I was just up in Yosemite taking pictures of the Milky Way. I don't think people appreciate what they can get in their phone.
Well, and it only gets better and better, right? This idea of computational photography, being able to have your camera leverage the power of a computer, supercomputer almost, basically a supercomputer, in your pocket. It's just amazing. That's what must be so interesting, I know, in my life, but even more in your life, seeing that transition from all the way when we started this conversation in the dark room and creating there to all the way to having all those tools sitting in your pocket and being able to do everything right there. But, speaking of the phone, you've got these things in your pocket. Is there a favorite mobile technique that you find that's easier on your phone than when you're shooting on a DSLR or mirrorless?
It's the number of applications you have available to you on the phone. Your camera can be changed into a long exposure camera, a time-lapse camera, a video camera. It's all of those capabilities. You know this. I know you know this.
Oh, yeah,
yeah. It's all of those programs that you have built in that you don't have built into a DSLR, to immediately be able to capture it and then process it right on the phone without having to make a connection. We all live off the internet, and I've been isolated in Antarctica with no internet, and you can take a photograph and process the photograph all in one device. And then when you come back to the real world of internet, you can then upload it. See, the iPhone, they put out really great telephoto, a wide angle lens. I have everything I need in that device. All the tools fits in your pocket. You can go places. Now you'll say, Russ, you're traveling with strobes, and the strobes cost more than the camera. That's a little wacky. Is that like putting a spoiler on the back of a 1960s Volkswagen. Why? But yeah, there's that challenge again. I want to be that one crazy person that's doing it. Fall in love with what you love doing, and somebody will come. If you're the expert on the iPhone, then somebody's going to come find you and have you speak at Photoshop World or something.
There you go. Oh no, yeah, we've done classes for KelbyOne just on that technique of just using the strobe, because that's what we're like. Is it really proves that point that these are just tools. It's more about the vision and the creativity. To your other point, we have to be able to push ourselves to do those hard things in order to get better, and in order to just progress. So we're progressing here. And one of the things that is progressing right now is AI, right? So that's another thing that's big right now.
Here it comes.
So
I have a statement to make.
yes.
Go
ahead.
I'll make my statement if you make your statement.
Sure.
Yeah. I must admit I was a little skeptical of AI in the beginning, but I've grown to love it and embrace it and use it as a tool for creativity. It is just as important to me or unique to me as a small clay working tool that I'm using on a spinning pot on a wheel. I mean, you've got these new refined tools for speeding up your workflow, making you more creative. And I believe that AI is only going to be as creative as the person using it. I believe there's still this human that steps in and uses the tool and dreams up these ideas. It is an incredible tool. You have to use it as a tool. Think of all the capabilities. Now, Erik, I'm sitting back. I'd like to hear your take on AI. What's your thought?
I love AI as a tool, right? Like you're saying, I still think that creativity with AI is driven by humans.
Yes.
You could fast forward and say that might change 20, 30, 50 years down the road. I don't know. I just know, like right now, what I'm living in, it's amazing to be able to get out and have almost like a creative helper that's helping you through the process. I've even used AI to visualize lighting that I was like, well, what if I did this? And instead of having to go places and do it, it was showing me like, well, what if you set the light up here, and gave me diagrams, and we were bouncing ideas back and forth. And I know I'm just talking to a machine, but it feels like it's somebody that I'm helping reason through the problem. I love that, so I'm embracing it like you're embracing it.
And how would you and I live without AI masking?
Oh, golly, it blows your mind. I mean, you don't even need a tablet anymore.
No.
I just got AI masking and I'm good. I mean,
I got to ask you a question about AI. Have you had a conversation with one of the AIs on a Chat GPT or something? I find it quite enjoyable to chat.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. If you just want to, like I said, bouncing ideas and having that iterations that you go through. I love it. I love it. But I'm weird like that. All right. So, speaking of, we're getting that transition to AI, but there's always that next act, right? And there is another act here, and that is the legacy, that you're going to leave with us, right? Because it's undeniable, like we've been talking about. I don't think that Photoshop would exist today in the way it does without you being part of that, right? So in the teaching that you've done, in the direction that you've done, what do you hope that your students remember from you? Is there a mindset? Is there a way of seeing that you want to pass on to another generation?
What is it, Paul Simon? Still crazy after all these years. I think, just be as crazy as you possibly can. Don't close any doors. As we said, leave all the doors open. I hope that they get wild and crazy and occasionally throw on a costume and have fun and entertain their audiences, educate their audiences, share with each other. It's just I would love to leave a legacy of mad creativity. Just do everything you possibly can to do something that's so unique and different that it stops people from scrolling, you know.
I try to channel that energy when I'm doing stuff. I find sometimes we get into traps, right? We get into traps as creatives where, oh, we've got to do this, or the people, you know, our boss or our editor, or they want us to do that. But kind of like pushing yourself to be out there kind of with that, like you're saying, that mad creativity.
Creativity.
So that's definitely something that I hope for people will resonate. You are Photoshop World Hall of Fame. You've won an Emmy for your teaching. What do those milestones mean to you in your life?
Wow, this is the heavy questions, and I am blessed. I'm not quite sure why. I am so blessed. Why did I turn left instead of right? Why did I get the job at Atari? Why did I get the job at Apple? Why did I get the job at Adobe? What was it that blessed me so much to be at the right place at the right time? I'm feeling like one of the luckiest people on the planet. That's where I'm sort of feeling right at this moment. The fact that Adobe still keeps me around. John Warnock's final words to me were, Russell Brown, you should never retire. So, I am not going to retire. And will I do another Photoshop World with you? Will I do another Adobe Max? Yeah, I think I keep on going until I have to come on stage in a golf cart, you know, and come up on the stage, and I will still put on costumes.
I can say that the world will be a better place because of that.
Yeah,
I even think that concept of retirement is an interesting one that I don't know if I've ever been able to come to grips with myself in my own head.
What the heck would I be doing? Would be doing the same thing, but then they wouldn't send me to Max. And I have this strange responsibility. I bring so many people together. Here's a good closing one. It's about people again. I can bring people together and change their lives through these invitationals and these workshops. That's what I really enjoy, and I take with me to think that I brought these two people together and they got married. Or I brought these people together and they're working with each other. I bring a group together at Max, and they all wait and count the days when they can come back together again and meet up with everybody. So there's an interesting point. A legacy maybe point again is bringing people together, making those connections, because it's all about the people you meet along the way.
That's obvious with your story here, right? And that's a through line I think that we've talked about here is it's the people you meet along the way, those connections you meet along the way, decisions that, you know, life is a sum of choices, right? You know, and what choices we make are the equation that lead to the end of our life, you know, so how we write that story is how we leave that legacy. But talking about that, you know, if somebody's listening to this and they're out there and they're starting out their career. Are they still listening to us?
Are they still listening?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll hope. So, you know, somebody's listening to this and, you know, they're starting out and they're like, you know, I want to bridge that gap. I believe in, you know, not only creativity, but bridging that gap between a lot of us users and the engineers, and being able to, again, educate people and bring people together and make those connections. How do people start? And what should they obsess over in that journey if you were going to give people advice?
Become passionate about something, and as we said earlier, to love it. But don't sit back and relax, especially when you're young, and have a passion for something, become the best at something. Don't give up. That sounds, you know, crazy. That I'm thinking about, what if I had no connections? What if I wasn't at Adobe? What are you doing? I see people who have invented themselves from nothing. Is it skill? Are you born with this? I don't think so. I think you're born with a certain amount, but I think an enormous amount. I think if you just work hard, you can work harder than the smartest person next to you and you can beat them out. Common sense to me is more important than raw intelligence. Common sense and creativity. I don't know about you, but I was not the A student in school, always making these. But I was the most creative in school, and I watched the most intelligent person become a manager at a hamburger joint. And so what's that all about? Why did that happen?
You were thinking differently. It was that Apple thing back in the day, right? Think differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were always that creativity. You were putting things together that society or people or you'd be like, these things don't go together, or you can't do that. And you're going, well, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Let's try that. And when you try it, people go, ooh, I like that.
It's so important to surprise people that we don't realize how important that is. We always love a great surprise, a creative edge to something. Create magic that people have never seen before, and that's what you need to leave behind. That's what they need to remember about you. Those are the important things in life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. So I think we should leave it there.
Yes.
I think that was a great close to it. I love the idea of being passionate about what you're doing. Like if you see that in people's work, the greats' work, your work. You see the passion just come out in the images. Yeah. And that's what I think being at Photoshop World, being a Photoshop user, being able to create that magic and that wizardry with this application, it's transcending. So we really cool.
We see passion in the people we meet. We see passion in a person before we even see their images. And that's what I like, see that passion and then see their images together. Wow.
Thanks for coming along the journey with me. I know that was a long journey there, but I will say that I am very fortunate to know you and fortunate to have experienced the history of your life there. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me.